Picture this. You're sailing off the coast of British Columbia. The water is calm, the fog settles in like a thick, wet blanket, and suddenly you spot it. A massive creature gliding through the water, long neck arched, horse-like head skimming the surface, flippers slapping the waves. You blink, and it's gone. Was it a sea monster? Or was it just a log and some wishful thinking? Welcome to Probably Not True, the podcast where history's weirdest, wildest myths get torn apart by facts, skepticism, and just the right amount of snarkiness to keep things interesting. But this isn't your usual episode today. This is a Patreon exclusive bonus episode, because when you support the show, you don't just get this warm fuzzy feeling inside, but you get more history, more of the myth busting, and yes, even more sea monsters that, spoiler alert, probably don't exist. Today we're diving deep, literally and figuratively, into one of Canada's lesser known cryptids, the Cadborosaurus, or Caddy for short. Is it the Pacific Northwest answer to the Loch Ness Monster? A sleek, serpent-like creature patrolling the chilly waters of British Columbia, lurking just out of sight? Is it a real-life prehistoric survivor? Some forgotten relic of a bygone era that somehow dodged extinction and science for millions of years? Or, and I'm just floating the idea here, is it yet another case of people mistaking a vaguely snake-shaped log, a curious seal, or a particularly ambitious piece of driftwood for a mythical beast? Well, today on Probably Not True, we're hauling Caddy out of the fog and into the bright, unforgiving light of reality. Canada's other monster. Named after Cadboro Bay in British Columbia, the Cadborosaurus, or Caddy to all its friends, is said to be a giant, mysterious marine creature that occasionally pops its head above the waves just long enough to ignite the imaginations and confuse local fishermen. The classic description of Caddy reads something like a cryptid design workshop. It has a long serpentine body stretching anywhere from 20 to, quite frankly ambitious, 50 feet. Because if you're going to invent a sea monster, you might as well make it absolutely huge. A horse-like or sometimes camel-like head, a nod to our deep-seated fear that somewhere out there, nature's still making weird prototypes. Flippers, 4 of them, strategically placed along that long body because legs are for quitters. Occasionally a mane because sometimes you need a bit of mythical drama. And it's always described as undulating gracefully through the water, like a snake on a very luxurious vacation just vibing in the waves. Sightings have been reported for centuries along the coast of British Columbia, Washington and Alaska. Basically anywhere the Pacific Ocean meets enough fog to play tricks on your eyes. And of course, wherever mysterious water monsters are sighted, you'll find a faithful gaggle of believers, or cryptozoologists if you want to get really fancy about it, ready to argue that Caddy is a genuine flesh and blood species just waiting to be discovered. No blurry photos or washed up globsters, which is the technical term for mystery carcasses by the way, can convince them otherwise. And the theory about Caddy might actually range from cautiously scientific to the wildly prehistoric. Some suggest it's a new species of large marine animal, something that scientists just happen to have missed. And others go big, a surviving plesiosaur, which is a massive marine reptile from the Mesozoic era, believed to have gone extinct around 65 million years ago, which is right around the time that an unfortunate asteroid happened to hit the Earth and spoil all the dinosaurs' plans. Just to put that into perspective, if Caddy is a real and a genuine plesiosaur, it would have been around before humans, before mammals, and before trees figured out how to produce flowers. Basically, it would have been gliding through ancient oceans while the rest of the planet was still trying to get its act together. A real Jurassic relic, if you were, just minding its ancient business, somehow avoiding every fisherman, scientist, sonar scan, and marine biologist for millions and millions of years. Sure, why not? That makes sense. Long before European settlers arrived with all their sketchbooks and their sensationalist newspaper headlines, the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest, which included the Haida, the Nuchanuth, and others, had rich oral traditions that spoke of large, mysterious creatures lurking in the ocean depths. The Naitaka, or Ogopogo, is probably the most famous from Okanagan Lake inland, but on the coastal side there are also stories of giant serpent-like beings swimming through the cold Pacific waters. Now descriptions do vary, but the themes are always familiar. Powerful, elusive, and very much not the kind of thing you want your canoe running into. Were these ancient accounts descriptions of what we now call Caddy? It's hard to say. They could have been referring to any number of large real-world creatures really, as the giant oarfish, with its long, ribbon-like deep sea fish that can reach up to 36 feet, and they do look suspiciously like a myth, or whales breaking the surface in strange ways. Or maybe they're simply mythologizing the vast unexplored ocean, the original here-be monsters for cultures deeply connected to the sea. What's certain is this: indigenous traditions about sea monsters far predate the arrival of European settlers and their written records. The fear and the fascination with what lurks below has always had very deep roots. Into the Europeans, with their quills, their tendency to panic about anything not nailed down, and their insatiable lust for a good monster story. The first written accounts of Caddy sightings start popping up about the 1800s. In 1848, the British sailing ship Daedalus reports encountering a large serpent-like creature off the coast of South Africa. Not exactly Canada, but the sea serpent craze does catch fire, and once a craze starts, it spreads faster than a bad meme. 1881, a local newspaper reports the sighting of a sea serpent slithering through Cadborosaurus Bay, Vancouver Island. This creature reportedly sported all of the classic features that you've come to expect: long body, mysterious undulations, general, you're not supposed to be here or exist vibes. Now, throughout the late 19th and 20th centuries, sailors, fishermen, and even the occasional tourists swore that they caught glimpses of something massive and serpentine out on the misty waves. But the gold standard of Caddy sightings came in 1937. Workers at a whaling station in Naden Harbour in British Columbia hauled in a mysterious carcass. It had a long neck, flippers, and a serpentine body, basically ticking all of the cryptid bingo boxes. They did snap a few black and white photos, and they dubbed the creature Caddy. These images were sent to local newspapers because, if you find a sea monster in 1937, you absolutely had to tell the presses. Scientists, including famous zoologist Dr. Edward Turner, examined the photos, and the killjoys that they were, suggested it was probably a basking shark or just a badly decayed whale. Boring sciencey stuff, And to add that perfect pinch of mystery, the carcass mysteriously disappeared before any formal in-depth study could be done. Because of course it did. That just makes sense. And with that vanishing act, Caddy slithered straight into the Cryptid Hall of Fame. Now since then, alleged photos of Caddy have begun to surface, and to put it diplomatically, they're not great. Most are blurry, low resolution, and generally resemble things that already exist and aren't monsters, like logs, sea lions taking a nap, floating kelp, basking sharks that had a bit of a rough day, because decomposition can work some real magic. But the blurry photos haven't stopped the sightings cropping up, and eyewitness accounts keep coming in. Over 300 reported Caddy encounters to date, with witnesses ranging from fishermen to ferry operators to the occasional scientist who probably saw something strange and decided to tell the story at a party. So like any self-respecting cryptid, the myth of Caddy lives on. Somewhere between folklore, wishful thinking, and a whole lot of misty mornings on the Pacific. What the evidence says. The science of sea monsters. Let's be honest, the idea of undiscovered sea monsters is an extremely exciting one. The ocean is vast, deep, dark, and largely unexplored. We've mapped the surface of Mars better than we've mapped the entire ocean floor. So surely, like the giant squid, there could be something huge, mysterious, and vaguely horrifying lurking down there. And maybe, but probably not this mysterious, to be honest. When it comes to Caddy, marine biologists have a few less glamorous, but much more plausible theories about what people might be seeing. Basking sharks. I've mentioned them a few times already, but these gentle, filter-feeding giants can grow over 30 feet long, and when they die they start decomposing quite quickly. The lower jaws, the gills and the fins often break down first, which just leaves a long neck, a small head and flipper-like remnants. In other words, serpentine, an instant sea monster starter kit. It could be the giant oarfish, the world's longest bony fish, and they can reach 30 to 36 feet easily. They have sinuous, ribbon-like bodies that undulate through the water, exactly like the elegant serpentine motion described in all of Caddy's sightings. And a bonus, they live in the deep ocean and occasionally rise to the surface when they're sick or dying, which is the classic cryptid reveal scenario. It could be whales or seals, because marine life doesn't always behave like it's auditioning for a nature documentary with David Attenborough. There are partial sightings, like a whale surfacing awkwardly or a seal twisting in the water, which can easily create the illusion of a long, undulating creature, especially if you're far away, sleep-deprived and primed to see monsters. Driftwood and kelp, nature loves a good prank. Floating logs, tangled seaweed and other debris can look surprisingly lifelike, especially under the right lighting conditions or, partially submerged shifting in the current. You add a little dash of fog, a little imagination, presto, sea monsters. And then of course there's always the theory that they could just be hoax, because humans love a good monster story, let's be real. From fake footprints to stage photos, we're not all above a little cryptid cosplay, especially if it means attention, notoriety, or just a great story to tell at the pub. Why no physical evidence? So here's the bigger problem for Team Caddy. If a massive breeding population of mysterious sea monsters existed, we'd expect something tangible by now. We'd see bones, we'd see carcasses, we'd see reliable, clear, non-potato quality photos, especially in the 21st century and in this day and age. For a population of 30 to 50 foot creatures to survive, you need more than a few, you need a whole sustainable group. Which means sooner or later one would die, wash up and become evidence. But shocker here, no hard evidence has ever materialised. There's just a lot of eyewitnesses, mostly unreliable, a lot of blurry photographs, even more unreliable, and log-shaped creatures that conveniently vanish before anyone can take a closer look. In short, there's no skeletons, there's no fossils, there's no confirmed remnants. Just a lot of, I swear it was right there. Which, as science is concerned, ranks somewhere on the scale between maybe and, yeah, alright buddy. Now, of course it's impossible not to compare Caddy to the world's most famous aquatic mystery, the Loch Ness Monster. Both are indeed aquatic, long-necked, extremely good at avoiding HD cameras, and thriving on grainy, vaguely disappointing photos. But there is one key difference. Nessie's a full-blown industry. Loch Ness pulls in millions of pounds every year in tourist revenue. Hotels, cruises, museums, novelty t-shirts, you name it, they've got it. Nessie has whole festivals dedicated to her. But Caddy, this is where British Columbia hasn't quite cashed in on the local legend. There are no Caddy themed hotels, there's no Caddy cruises, no Caddy plush toys lining the tourist shops. Just a lingering legend that lives on. A few grainy photos, and just the occasional article reminding everyone that, hey, maybe there is still something out there. You know, if you squint hard enough and you want it badly enough. So why does this myth endure? Well, like usual on this podcast, humans love mystery. There's something fundamentally uncomfortable and even a little bit sad about the idea that everything to discover has already been discovered. That the map is finished, that every corner of the world has been poked, prodded and catalogued, scientists have run out of things to discover. The ocean though. The ocean refuses to play by these rules. It covers over 70% of the Earth's surface and largely remains unexplored. Like I said earlier, we've mapped more of Mars than we have of the ocean floor. New marine species are discovered all the time, although they tend to be things like shrimp, jellyfish and plankton, not giant sea dragons. But sea monsters, they hit a particular nerve in our collective imagination. They feel ancient. They're untamed relics of a wilder, less understood Earth. They remind us that we're small, we're fragile and we're not nearly in as control as we like to pretend. And honestly, they make for great fishing stories. The Cadborosaurus myth endures not because there's good evidence, but because it's comforting. It's thrilling. It's thrilling to think that maybe, just maybe, the world still has a few secrets tucked away out there in the waves. Secrets that haven't been dissected by science or turned into a Netflix documentary yet. And until we've explored every trench, every shadowy bay and every inch of the deep, Caddy gets to keep slithering around in that space between hope and reality. So, is the Cadborosaurus real? Probably not. Is it a prehistoric relic surviving unseen in the Pacific Northwest for millions of years, dodging marine biologists, sonar scans and the entire fishing industry? Highly unlikely. Is it a combination of misidentified whales, decomposing sharks, floating logs, enthusiastic imaginations and the eternal human desire to believe in something mysterious? Almost certainly. But hey, if you ever find yourself sailing off the coast of British Columbia and you spot something long, sinuous and a little too lively skimming across the water, maybe keep your camera ready. Snap a photo, preferably one that's not blurry, send it to me, and then, just to be safe, triple check that it's not just a log in a particularly dramatic mood today. Cryptid breaking in. 1 out of 10, flipper slaps. Nice try, Canada. Better luck next, Myth. Thank you for supporting Probably Not True here on Patreon. Your support means more myth busting, more behind the scenes posts, and frankly, more terrible history jokes are headed your way very soon. Stay weird, stay skeptical, stay curious, and remember, if it sounds too strange to be true, it's probably not true. Next time on Probably Not True, we tackle a truly bizarre theory. What if some countries don't actually exist? From Finland allegedly being a hoax invented by Japan and Russia, to Australia being a global conspiracy, we ask the real questions. How exactly do you fake an entire country? Stay tuned.